This video is in session. There are a lot of ethical questions that are raised about the COVID-19 vaccine rollout in the United States. So I'm going to try to answer some of them. The first question is more of a situation. So uh, imagine if you have 10 vials of COVID-19 of the vaccine that are opened and you have 6 hours to use them, but no one is in the hospital COVID vaccination line at this current moment because it's been very late in the day. So everyone's going home. What would you do? Would you take them and vaccinate your own people in your neighborhood, or would you throw them away, give them to the administration and throw them away? At first glance, you might think it's pretty obvious to just vaccinate anyone with those 10 vials, um, because it's either you vaccinate 10 people or you throw away those vials. But apparently, it's not as simple as that because this is an actual story that occurred. Um, here we have a doctor who literally had this kind of question he had to ask himself. And what the backstory of this is this was happening in a Houston hospital. So the last patient was not the last patient, but the last person was in line, but a colleague of his had to open a new set of vials in order to get the vaccine for him, her, or them. So as a result, they had 10 leftover vials, and since they were all opened, they had to be they had to either be immediately distributed or thrown out within 6 hours. So Dr. Gokul was tasked with that question, and he obviously chose not to throw away because he was given guidance that he should vaccinate as many as possible. Don't throw away vials. That's what the Houston area hospital said, or not the Houston area hospitals, but actually the state medical officials. So he then scrambled to find 10 people, and this really took him to his neighborhood and around that area where he vaccinated people who were eligible but were not in the COVID-19 vaccine line. And then he finally had one leftover vial that would expire within 45 to 30 minutes. So there was supposed to be the final person was supposed to get vaccinated, but he was unavailable. So as a result, Dr. Gokul vaccinated his wife, who was also eligible for the vaccination. He recorded all of these names in the medical files, and as a result, he got fired for supposedly stealing COVID-19 vaccines. Um, and they said, or at least the DA attorney that is representing the case against him said that he should have given the vaccines to the administration so that they can throw them away instead of supposedly stealing them and giving them to his wife, who was eligible for the vaccine. So obviously, you can see from this rendition of the case how insane it is for the attorney, not the attorney, but for the DA, to prosecute him, and he was then fired from the Houston area hospitals. So yeah, all of this case is very ridiculous, and a judge ruled for Dr. Gokul, saying how ridiculous this case was. But this is an ethical question that I didn't think needed to be brought up. This should, I mean, like so many states already have policies saying that if there's no one in the vaccine line for that day and you have 10 empty vials or 20, then you should just get anyone vaccinated, or you should at least try to find eligible people outside of the hospital to get vaccinated, because right now the most important thing is getting people vaccinated. I mean, that's literally the policy of West Virginia, one of the best states in COVID-19, in their COVID-19 vaccination rollout program. We see here that 12.4% of people have already gotten their first dose, and 6.2% of people have gotten their second dose. So, what they said was that if you have vials left over for the day and there's no hospital worker to vaccinate or anyone in the vaccination line for that day, then you just vaccinate anyone you can. But apparently in Houston, that's not allowed, which is my, it's, I mean, it's ridiculous to me, but there is a tiny bit of merit, if you want to say, where you're saying you're given, you're given like special privilege to your neighborhood or to your wife because she's your wife. But that's not the point. The point is to vaccinate everyone as much as you can, and most importantly, to vaccinate those who are high risk. And that leads me to the second question. If you are eligible for the vaccine, but you're pretty healthy and you're pretty stable mentally and physically, then should you wait and let someone else who is potentially sicker than you get the vaccine? So for that question, I'd answer for the next 2 months. Yeah, if you're healthy, and if now obviously there's no right answers to these questions, but if you feel healthy, and not if you feel healthy, if you are healthy mentally and physically, and if you are eligible, then I'd say you can wait. Generally because there is still a shortage of COVID-19 vaccines. But in like 2 months or after 2 months, then I think that if you are asking yourself that question, then you should get a vaccine, because by the time that April comes, then I believe that there will be enough vaccines for all high risk people, all eligible people in phase one. So that's my take on that question. And then finally, the final question is it better to reserve vaccines so that everyone can get second doses? Or is it better to simply vaccinate as many people as possible and then wait for the second doses later? So for that question, it's hard to answer. I mean, generally, I think the government is switching to a plan where they can vaccinate as many people as possible, but potentially not giving them people the second dose that they need for a while, but just to get everyone vaccinated so that they can have at least some level of protection. I'd say that for certain states or for certain places, especially those with much more COVID cases, then vaccinating as many people as you can is definitely definitely more important than trying to get as many people vaccinated with 2 doses of vaccines. So yeah, in high risk in those big population centers, then yes, I do believe that should be done. For the rest of the states, it's a hard. That's a more complicated. That's a more complicated question to answer, because if the amount of cases is not that high in a state, then I'd say yeah, I'd say that you could try to get people with as many people with 2 doses of vaccines, because it's not as rampant of a problem. But ultimately, I think overall, that it's a question that has been debated, and if we're gonna look at past precedent to answer this question, then we do have past precedent. For the Biden administration right now, they are vaccinating everyone as much as they can. Meanwhile, for the Trump administration, at least in their first half of their vaccination program, they they wanted to get as many people vaccinated with 2 doses. And we can see the difference, and the Biden administration seems to have gotten a much better rollout than the Trump administration, which may show signs that vaccinating everyone is better than vaccinating everyone with 2 shots first. So, but okay, look, there's some caveats to that in that vaccination has gotten better, so that may also play into um, the COVID-19 vaccination rollout. But overall, I'd say that just vaccinate everyone as many people as possible. Simply because that's better for the nation rather than a situation where a few people get 2 doses, but then everyone else gets no doses. So that's the end of this video. I hope you enjoyed it. This video is now adjourned for, I guess, like 2 days. Yeah, Friday and Saturday I'm not going to be making videos, and I'll see you in the next one.